Greetings everyone, my name is Etterville, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Mega Maker. During the last part, I completed the level design tutorial, so in this part, as promised, I'll be completing all 10 of the example levels. In the next part, I'll be trying out some of the online submitted levels made by other people. So I'm going to go and do this in alphabetical order. Hopefully I'll be able to complete all of them in this part. Let's see how long each of them will be. Starting with Aquatic Ruins. At the start of each level, we can see what the name of the level is, who created it, and what abilities we'll have here. Like here we have the slide enabled, but the charge shot is disabled, and we start out with these special weapons. And it was created by Entity 1037. He created my favorite level in Megamel too, so let's see how this goes. Plus we can also delete this level from our local disk as well, so if you're not connected online, you can replay some of the levels that you already downloaded. So there is that for local play. Let's begin then. Of course, bigger levels will take some more time to load up after all. So apparently we have to fight Toadman in the Aquatic Ruins. And we have Bubbleman's team. So let's get started, shall we? Let's see, here we start with the Mega Buster, Firestorm, Surge Snake, Flash Stopper, Silver, Tomahawk, and the Magnet Beam. And of course here we can exit the stage, we can surrender I think, and we can also restart if we get stuck. We have E-tanks, M-tanks. I really wish we had access to W-tanks, but there seems to be a suspicious omission in between the E and M tanks, so I suppose that'll be added. And then we have the life total. Okay, let's take the right route. And we have all those seals, of course, from Mega Man 6 from Blizzard Man's stage. Okay, nice introduction of gimmicks. Nice that the enemies are introduced in a relatively safe environment first. And we have these canopellers. They're kind of annoying at longer distance, but we're introduced to them in a safe environment, so it's fine. After all these 10 example levels were added to showcase what capabilities this engine actually has. So they'll demonstrate various different feature sets, assets, and enemy combinations, and what to do while doing this engine, and hopefully what not to do. Hopefully these will be used as a baseline to create a lot better levels in the near future, as in the first day, I suspect for the first few days for this engine work, the levels are going to be a little bit lower quality. After all, people are excited that this engine has been created, or level design has been created, so the first few levels are probably going to be on the short to medium side, or going to be a little bit more hastily thrown together and not as well placed tested. We'll have to wait probably up to a few weeks or a month before we get some really good levels, or really good gems. Like this is demonstrating how we can actually use vertical scrolling. I don't think we have access to forward-directional or omnidirectional scrolling in this game, but to be fair, the NES games and none of the Mega Man Classic games actually had access to omnidirectional scrolling, I think. Only either vertical or horizontal. Of course, on the right over there, it links up to this pathway, so if you took it, you get an E-tank. This is also showcasing using alternate pathways to reward the player. Also a nice illustration here, this was taken directly from Mega Man Powered Up. When you pass these are the checkpoint blocks basically, so you know exactly where checkpoints will be. I would have preferred that they introduced the falling blocks for a safer environment, but this'll do. Plus these don't fall as quickly as in some of the other games. Plus it did introduce the falling blocks in a safer environment, and they introduced it just after a check. And of course I didn't realize it, but apparently we have infinite lives in this game. Quite appreciated, especially with how hard the levels can get. Though I would have liked if there was the addition of a death counter somewhere so I could see how much I'm failing at a level. After all, I did mention in the description of the first part that one of the things I would like to have added is like a 10 Mega Man challenge, or a 10 Mario challenge, or 100 Mega Man challenge. Oh, what happened there? Okay. I must have got lodged into the wall and couldn't get across. As I was saying though, I really wish there was a death counter somewhere. Maybe it is at the end of the stage, so I can compare and contrast with other players to see how difficult stages are, and based off that we can make stages that are based off... Okay, that's another interesting thing. But to be fair, we can jump over the ceiling in a lot of other Mega Man Classic games. So it makes sense. Let's try out some of the weapons, like the Firestorm of course. I wonder if each enemy type actually has their own Roadmaster weaknesses or special weapon resistances or weaknesses. I know in Megamel 1, 2, and a lot of other Mega Man fan games they do. correctly this time. But I would like a 100 or 10 Mega Man challenge, or... Whoa, what? That was a weird odd camera there. As I was saying before, I keep getting interrupted by stuff. Also nice background. A lot better than Bubble Man's background, in fact. Now, I'm not sure if I recognize these backgrounds from any Mega Man classic game. Maybe it was added somewhere. And now we have the introduction of junk blocks, of course. First, the damage I took in the stage, unfortunately. Oh, and that reminds me, I would have liked it if there was also a damage counter in this, in addition to a number of deaths. So you can see if you perfectly run the stage and probably get a reward or achievement, or some extra fanfare at the end of the stage for perfect running it, if possible. And of course, if we do screw ourselves over, we can always just use the magnet beam to get across. So we aren't forced to take a death if necessary. But of course, we can also just exit and re-enter rooms if necessary. Like I said, I really wish there was an option to lock it so you can only scroll into different sections only one way, so you don't end up taking forced damage in certain scenarios. But as I said, I would like a death counter, life counter, number of life pickups taken, number of damage taken, etc. But as I was saying, I would like the 100 or 10 Mega Man challenge, where it'll randomly select from a group of stages that we already completed, or a random set of stages based off of the difficulty, aka completion ratio of success to loss, and then pick them and give us a limited number of lives in order to complete the stages. That would be fun. That's personally one of my favorite things to watch in streams, as for people to go through the 100 Mario challenge and try surviving all the levels, especially with the variance of level qualities and difficulties. And of course, if I didn't mention it before, we can jump, shoot, slide, and we also have a quick slide option, and we have the quick weapon switch. Also, if you hit the quick weapon switch left and right buttons simultaneously, or keys, it'll automatically send you back to using just the Mega Buster. Alright, time to fight Toadman, who was made quite a bit harder because of all the spike platforms at the bottom. So I gotta be a little bit cautious there. Of course, this could happen. Still, this is a little bit more hairy compared to the previous fight in Mega Man 4, so there is that. And his weakness is the Search Snake, of course. Oh, I would also like some extra fanfare if you complete bosses or stages without using special weapons, or the required set of weapons. That would be nice. Also, I forgot to mention in the previous part, but Mega Man has another nice animation where he does his pose before he teleports out. Alright, we completed Aquatic Ruins. Unfortunately, we don't get to rate it because these are all example levels. If this was an actual level, which I played online, I would be able to rate it, favorite it, etc. Alright, Chamber of Trials, I only have access to Rush Coil, but I do have the Mega Man 5 Charge Shot and I can slide. Created by PKWeegee. And the boss is, of course, Top Man. I do like how they preserved and kept the Mega Man 5 or Mega Man Classic intro schematic or intro style over there. So it is memorable in that way, because it introduces what boss fight we'll face in the stage. Neat! Oh, in order to access the stage, in order to get through the stage, we need to use these Galaxy Man teleporters to teleport to other parts of the stage. I'm not sure if this was possible back in Mega Man 9. That's neat. And we have Time Man's team. And we have Metal Man's background, it seems. Unfortunately, you can't add multiple boss fights in the stage. You can only have one at the end. But I'll have to take a look and see if you can actually add multiple mini-boss fights in the stage. I suppose you can, but the move pool or selection for enemies in this game is rather limited, especially compared to stuff like Megamel 2, which takes the almost throw the kitchen sink approach, where it has almost every enemy. Also, nice introduction of the moving platforms in a safe environment, without any enemies in fact. Same with the gumball machine over here. That was my fault, because I forgot to press the jump button. But I do like there's actually a checkpoint right over here if you do get stuck. although it's not really exactly as necessary. It's just the minor things to alleviate frustrations, so that you don't need to repeat that earlier section. After all, in this game, you can place an infinite number of checkpoints if you really want to. I suppose those will be used as Kaiser traps to trap you into an instant death situation or an unavoidable state for the stage. I know that's happened countless times in Mario Maker. And another thing I forgot to note, when designing these levels, make sure to take into account the difficulty of the stage when you determine where to place the checkpoints, as well as the number of checkpoints. Personally, I like to follow the fact that a checkpoint should be placed every 6 to 12 screens in a level. That way players don't need to repeat too much of the stage over and over again. I know you have infinite lives in this game, but still I would like it to have at least 6 to 12 screens. That way players don't get frustrated repeating sections over and over. And you should add more and more checkpoints if the difficulty segments are harder and harder. So if a section is harder, add more checkpoints. If it's easier, you can add less and space them out more. And don't forget to add all of the extra items as well. Or don't forget to add a pickup so that players aren't frustrated and lose their health too rapidly. To be fair, in this game you don't have any extra lives, well, at least in this mode. So right now, getting an extra life just refills your health up to max. So we finished this segment and we're taken to the next one. I do like how each segment has their own gimmick. Now we have all these, I forget what game these platforms came from. Is this Concrete Man's platforms? Well, it can't be actually, because we don't have Mega Man 9 stuff. Maybe it's from Mega Man 6 then. I completely forgot I have access to charge shots here. Whoops. I was following the trend from the previous stage. I probably should be using the charge shot more because it's a Mega Man 5 version, aka the most powerful version. I could go for that extra life there, but I decided not to risk it. And now we have the Sparkman platforms. I'm liking this stage more than the Entity stage because it introduces each gimmicks in a really nice fashion. aka it's always introduced in a very safe room where you have no chance of getting hurt by an enemy, and you can always re-enter and exit the room if you screw up the challenge somehow. Also, a nice variation of the tired usage of, or tired overusage of Sniper Joes. If you really want to, you can face them head on and shoot them at their shields, or of course you can hit the block at the bottom and just you don't need to worry about them. And I forgot there that of course the Sparkman platforms can crush you if you go against a wall. But like I said, we have so many checkpoints here that are well placed that we don't need to worry about it too much. I think it'll be better to not have the charge shots here, because if I have the charge... oh, sorry about that. If I use the charge shot, it's going to hit a shield and bounce off. You know, I've kind of referred to this in some of my previous LPs, but I would have liked it so there was an upgrade, in other fan games specifically. I would have liked if it was an upgrade to make it so that your charge shot can actually blow up the Sniper Joe shields or deal damage to the Sniper Joes behind their shields. That would alleviate a lot of the issues players have with Sniper Joes, where you have to wait a long time before you can actually do an action or move forward. Boy, this segment is getting a lot more challenging than I expected. But I would have liked it if there's a way to blow up the shield using your fully powered up charge shot, maybe level 2, or at least deal damage to them behind the shield. Like I said, that would alleviate some of the problems of having to wait for a long period, or at least breaking the flow when you have to wait for a Sniper Joe to put up their shield. So at least you can deal some damage. Okay, this is gonna take a... and I pressed Z there, it didn't work. And I only have access to Rush Coil, so this segment is going to be kind of a problem. I just need to keep mashing the X button and I'll... oh! Okay, nice reversal here. If you actually just blew up those junk blocks, you'd have to be forced to fight all these Sniper Joes. Neat! Of course, here we're kind of forced to fight the Sniper Joes, but we have the choice of just destroying one and then moving upwards if we really want to. At least I can reset the room over here if I really need to, but that was kind of a screw up on my part. Okay, and this is the more durable version of Sniper Joes, who take about... They have at least 9 HP, so these are kind of more annoying to deal with, especially at longer distances. I usually like the Sniper Joes who only have about 8 HP, so you can button mash them down relatively quickly. So this probably has 12 or 13 HP. Like I said, I also don't like it when we have shielded enemies with a lot of HP like these versions of Sniper Joes. I really wish, this is probably the Mega Man 2 version, that's why. I really wish we had the 9 HP versions or something. Oh well. It wasn't really illustrated as much in the tutorial, but don't overuse certain enemy types who are really slow-paced to deal with unless the stage is built for that, because it can really destroy the pacing. But to be fair, this was a more slow-paced level in the first place, so it wasn't that bad. So we have a checkpoint, and that illustration in the back showed that we're now going to be fighting a combination, or fighting enemies in combinations of all 3 gimmicks. Those were the tutorial rooms, and now we have the actual rooms where you have to fight against all different enemies with those 3 gimmicks. I wouldn't mind this as an actual Mega Man stage, this is pretty good. I would at least rate this in tier 6 or 7 in Megamel 2 in fact. Nice introduction to gimmicks, nice introduction to enemies, and a solid difficulty progression curve. Also nice usage of the combination of the moving platforms, or the Metal Man platforms who can push the enemies away now. Or rotate the enemies away. But to be fair, all these example levels were from more seasoned Mega Man developers, level designers. Once we get to the online stages in the next part, we're going to see a lot more variance in quality. Unlike here where all the levels are at least going to be decent. Oh, precise jumping. At least there's only one precise jump. Another tip. Don't overfill your levels with precise pixel-perfect jumping. I suppose I'll have to compile all these tips into one video or a few videos once I design my own level, and then go over my level design ethos and what I'm looking for in a Mega Man level. Although I'll probably make hints of it once I go through the online levels. Okay, boss time. Let's fight Top Man, let's see which version he is. In fact, we have the Mega Man 6 Wily Fortress Wily boss team for some reason. I forgot to jump. Okay, so this is the Mega Man 3 version, aka the easy version. And I don't really have his weakness or any special weapons, so I'll just do it the classic way. With charge shots. And there we have it. This tower has been conquered. I definitely liked it more than Entity Stage, but that's more so to the fact it used 3 gimmicks and introduced each of them well. Also, I realized that that pose that Mega Man did actually was taken directly from the title of Mega Man 1. Okay, so Chamber Trials was good, let's go on to Computer Lab. In this case, we have slide enabled, we have the Mega Man 6 charge shot, and this was created by CosmicGem. So let's do this. Computer Lab, and the boss is of course Sparkman. And I suppose that we can skip past these intros if we press the enter or start button. Oh, and we have the Gravity Man stage team. It's kind of interesting seeing that we have the Sparkman stage aesthetics, but we have the Gravity Man team. We're gonna see, especially when we get to the online levels, especially with the lower quality ones or more unique ones, I'm sure we're gonna see a lot more mashups in terms of level aesthetics, enemies, tile sets, backgrounds, and musical tracks. And not to mention bosses, of course. Good, I think the Star Snake was actually sped up in terms of speed. Let's see what we have access to. Plant Barrier, Sir Snake, Crash Bomber, Silver Tomahawk, and the Magnet Beam. Most of these stages have only been in medium length too, so they're relatively fine to go through. After all, these are supposed to be example levels, and they're all relatively of the same length of a regular Mega Man stage in the classic games. They're not as long as some of the levels, or the general average stage length in a lot of Mega Man fan games, in fact. In usual classic Mega Man games, the non-Fortress stages are about 20 to 25 screens long, Whereas in Mega Man Classic fan games, they seem to be a lot more like 30-35 screens long. For me, I like the longer variations of stages which are 30-35 screens long, but only if they can have unique gimmicks or unique mixes of gimmicks. Otherwise, it feels like I'm retreading the same ground as I did before. I do like that we could always just go with charge shots here, or if you want to be less risky, we could always just use special weapons. That's one of the things I love about special weapons in Mega Man. They make it so that you can take care of, if you don't want to face a challenge, if you find it too hard, you can always just use a special weapon to just cheese out of it, or make it a lot easier. So it really rewards experimentation to make, especially for speedrunning and making stuff easier, and proper stage order. Okay, vertical section with Yoku blocks. We have the Tada hose here. Of course, if I don't want to deal with it, I could just do this. Of course, there are all the Tada holes. Most of these stages that have been demonstrated, they have a lot of avenues for speedrunning, especially with special weapons. Except maybe the Chamber Trials, but that was something else. Oh nice, we have Windman's background, or was it the Yamato Man's background? One of the two. Unfortunately, we don't have the energy balancer, so our weapons aren't automatically refilled based off the lowest one. That'll probably be an optional addition in a future update. Okay, Sparkman, but another nice addition is that the boss rooms can actually be non-symmetric. They can actually be they don't need to be one square and be a locked arena. You can actually make the boss arenas a lot bigger than in classic games. So in like this room is about 2 or 3 squares long. I think it's 3 squares long. But Sparkman can still attack you from off-screen, but you can't hit him from off-screen because your shots will dissipate. To demonstrate, if I can demonstrate, it's about 2 screens long. I'm not sure if I can actually hit enemies from off screen, it's kind of hard to tell. But I suppose that once your buster shots get off screen... Yeah, once your buster shots go off screen, even if it passes by where the enemy would be, it won't deal damage. But then the bosses can actually hit you from off screen though. Thankfully this does not apply to enemies though. For enemies, if you scroll them off screen, they'll obey the classic Mega Man fashion of disappearing. But for bosses, they will not disappear if you go off screen, so they can attack you from off screen and try sniping you if you're not careful. Thankfully, there aren't hard versions of bosses added, so there's that lenience there. But I do like that we're not restricted to having just one screen oriented for bosses. I can imagine now how we're going to have more creative boss fights where you're in a vertical room, bosses where you have to climb up rooms or run away from them against like the drill enemies, etc, etc. That would be really fun to check out. And I do like how now those obstacles or stage gimmicks, enemies and bosses can interact with them. You saw it in the previous stage, the Chamber of Trials, with all those with the Metal Man conveyor belts, how they pushed all those gumball machines. It also applies to all other enemies and bosses. So there are going to be a lot of interesting configurations of enemies that we're going to fight. Without further ado, let's do Crash Bomb Palace. This was made by Beat28, and here's a unique level. We have access to the slide, but just as mentioned in the tutorial, we only have access to the Crash Bomb and the Magnet Beam. But we have infinite access, we have infinite usage of the Crash Bombs, so this is going to be one of the more unique stages. Probably, this is going to be focusing on forced usage of the Crash Bombs. I'm not adverse to forced special weapon usage in regular Mega Man games and fan games. It's just that you need to be careful about how you manage how much special weapon energy the player will have, and how much they can refill it. Sure, you can have certain challenges where you have a limited supply of World Master weapons, and then based off of that you have to get through the stages as safely as possible and conserve it when you can survive. Okay, we have we have Flame Man's background there. Is it just me, or is the stage moving a bit laggy? It's kind of skipping, as you may have noticed. As you see, as I move by, it feels like just each tile is moving halfway per walk cycle. It's kind of throwing me off, unfortunately. But from what I've heard, Crash Bomb Palace is one of the bigger stages. Oh, never mind then. I take back my earlier statement in the previous stages. Apparently, in this game, you have omnidirectional scrolling. I thought, like in most other Mega Man classic games and fan games, you only had access to purely horizontal or vertical directional scrolling. But here we have access to omnidirectional scrolling, but it seems to cause a little bit of jitter though, unfortunately. But this opens up a lot of other stage design types, because now we don't need to worry about keeping lockstep to a purely... We don't need to keep a lockstep to a purely square-shaped level design. Now we can have rectangular-shaped sections and whatnot, with varying heights and widths. And that'll allow exploring separate pathways to be a lot more fun. Many kudos to the developers for adding this feature. That's one of the things I was really hoping for in this game, the ability to actually have access to omnidirectional scrolling, because that opens up a whole slew of new possibilities. And that makes it so that traversing through certain sections is a lot more convenient. Because usually if you're limited to horizontal or vertical scrolling, you'll need to make some tricks, especially with the forced 256 by 224 room size, in order to actually progress, in order to contain where the stages will continue on to, or where the stages will connect onto. But with the omnidirectional scrolling, those problems disappear, because you can more easily meld where the player will go. I noticed something interesting though. Notice how the camera kind of locks when I go to the right here? I'm not allowed to go more forward to the right, as you may have noticed. But when I get up to here, immediately I'm able to scroll past it. So this game kind of has like the Mega Man X style scrolling, where you can actually put camera locks of where you're going to scroll. At least that's what I think. Which is very nice, actually. I suppose it's automatically done because... Sorry, I'm just doing it for a demonstration. Because there's no blocks on the right side of the screen. There's no room on the right, directly to the right of me. So when I go up here, there's only a room to the right here. So it's... Oh, okay. So camera's a little bit glitchy though, but it can be done. So because of this, it won't scroll downwards because there's no blocks at the bottom. It's just treated as a bottomless pit. So the camera is smarter than I expected it to be. And of course we had seamless scrolling, as you may have noticed. There was no... Oh, that was bad. To be fair, the batons getting stuck over there happens in regular Mega Man games anyway. So I'm not too worried about it. And we can't really hit all of these Shopman Mach 2s. I mean Mach 3s. Whoa. Oops. Sorry. So yeah, I was thinking that we can create omnidirectional scrolling, but we'll have to keep a rectangular styled screen. But no, we can actually have non-rectangular sides. Well, when I say rectangular size screen, I mean the 256 by 224 room size, and the entire section must be a rectangle. But no, we can have Mega Man X style sections, but, well, maybe a little bit more limited because we can't explicitly put camera locks. But now we can have sections that have gaps in between them that can never be reached, and they're just act like bottomless pits or walls. So the game is a lot more smarter and flexible than I expected it to be. So even more kudos to the developers for that. So, and because of this, as you may have noticed, we had no discrete scrolling like in the previous 4 stages or previous 3 stages. All of the stages right now has been seamless, just like a Mega Man X stage, or Mega Man X and onward. Like I said, this wasn't possible, and I don't remember this being in any Mega Man classic game. I only seen this in Mega Man ROM hacks, and of course Mega Man fan games. Specifically outside of the Mega Man classic titles, I mean. Oh boy, that was close. But unfortunately, it seems to be causing some lag issues for the stages. As you can see with the stuttering, it would be a lot more worse if I was on a weaker computer. That's for sure. Thankfully, I work on Mega Man 2 and onward spike physics. aka, I won't take a hit, I won't instantly die when I'm at invulnerability. Okay, interesting. we have an option between taking two pathways. We can take the pathway upwards, or we can go downwards using the magnet beam. For a change, I'm going to take the bottom route and see how it goes. I have access to magnet beam after all. Apparently not. Okay, so it loops back here. I can't cheese it. But of course, it seems that the omnidirectional scrolling is a little bit finicky in some places, as you may have noticed, especially when it decides to lock-unlock. But I'll take the finickiness for the increased flexibility in level design types. But of course, with increased flexibility in tool sets, there's more chance for people to abuse it. We're probably going to see quite a few number of examples of people abusing the omnidirectional scrolling to hide their level design weaknesses, or overuse it without properly taking into consideration the pros and cons of using omnidirectional scrolling. Not to mention you can use a combination of purely horizontal, purely vertical, and omnidirectional scrolling in your levels, depending on what your needs are. After all, certain level design tactics are better for other ones. After all, there are many different types of levels you can create. The reason why I'm acting out so much and why I'm liking this edition so much is that, as I keep saying, with just the purely horizontal vertical scrolling, the number of level design things are kind of limited. But when taking the omnidirectional scrolling, like pseudo Mega Man X style scrolling, you open up a whole slew of different possibilities for levels that you can create. I mean, in this one we have completely seamless scrolling, just like in Mega Man X, though the camera's a little bit finicky in places, and the stage is a bit choppy. But with this, of course, now new pathways and gimmicks can be made, and that weren't possible before. I mean, even here, we don't actually even need to use a room transition in order to open up the boss doors. I mean, just look at it. We just made it from the start to the end without reaching a room transition. Everything was seamlessly done, although it may have lagged a bit. So we're gonna fight Bombman here, if I can actually hit him properly. I need to hit it correctly in order to damage him. It's going to be a little bit difficult because this follows Mega Man 2's Crash Bomb, aka I can only fire one on screen at a time. It's going to be kind of annoying to hit at times, unless I carefully position myself. But it will damage him multiple times if I do get a hit. And it does deal 2 points of damage per hit, too. Especially if I get it correct. Okay, Bombman has been defeated. This was certainly one of the most unique stages I've played in this game. And if this sets the trend, I'm really looking forward to some of the better online levels. So yeah, Crash Bomb Palace, specifically for the omnidirectional scrolling and how creative it was used, and the fact there was no discrete scrolling transitions, everything was seamless. The fact that it used the pseudo Mega Man X one would automatically play screen locks. It's definitely my favorite stage out of the bunch of examples for now. And it's quite important because this example level pretty well demonstrates the flexibility and new features of this engine. So for that, I would say it's one of the best example levels in that regard. Both my favorite example level and one of the best for illustrating some of the new features of the engine, showing how much further it goes from the Mega Man Classic games and how much more freedom you have. It's not as good as like in Megamble 2 where you have access to scripting and whatnot, and a lot more enemy types and other crazy things. And of course there you can also you can have non-square shaped rooms, or not limited to 256 by 224 shaped room types. It's not as flexible as that and all of the audacity of there, but still this has a lot of new things. I'll play the Forgotten Fortress, and I'll probably have to split this up into 2 parts because this is going over 30 minutes. Alright, let's do Forgotten Fortress. Slide enabled, charge disabled, and I have a lot of special weapons. And this was created by OilMan X-Roll. I think I get the reference of this. And the boss of the stage is of course Toadman. Oh, I can't skip this intro. I suppose that would be a nice addition to a future update. And we have Stoneman's team for some reason. Okay, top spin, gravity hold. I wonder. Okay, no, it doesn't work in certain ROM hacks. Flash Stopper, Firestorm, Skull Barrier. If I recall correctly, I think this was in the trailer, so I will use the Skull Barrier on certain parts of the stage. Okay, we have the Snake Man platforms and the Bomb Man background. We have the Snake Man tile set and the Bomb Man background. I'm not too sure what the clouds are from. Okay, Plant Man platforms. I wonder what this will showcase. The previous two the Tower Trials illustrated how we can use the Galaxy Man platforms and how to introduce gimmicks. The Beads level, aka the Computer Lab, the Bomb Man's Trial, that demonstrated how we have omnidirectional scrolling. I wonder what this will demonstrate. Seems like we have a split pathway, so I suppose this will demonstrate how levels or stages can have multiple pathways to go through. Let's see, do I have access to that? Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention. This is actually a nice illustration because this is actually a barrier block which blocks all special weapons outside of the one shown over there. This is showing me that I can use a top spin in order to bounce off of enemies, and by doing so I can bounce out of the telly to reach that E-tank. But of course I need to lure the telly high enough before I can do that. So this is demonstrating barrier blocks and, well, different areas of the stage you can go through. Or you don't need to have one primary pathway to go through stages. Also demonstrating here, we can use a Skull Barrier to get across if we're fast enough. And this was just for some goodies, but still, I do like it when the stages have alternate pathways where you can get some extra goodies and whatnot. We have these bunny enemies from Mega Man 2. The only other thing I would have liked a bit more is the enemies were balanced a bit more from their base games. Like the Sniper Joes, instead of having 12 HP or whatever they had, the large amount they had in Mega Man 2, they instead have 8 or 9, so they are a lot easier to deal with. Oh well, maybe in a future update. But I suppose it's the balance between the flexibility, being true to the original games, and, well, ease of use. Another nice use of the Skull Barrier is that it protects against the spikes. It even protects against spikes if you're walking against the ceiling, against the wall, or on the ground. In fact, it doesn't even take it doesn't use any extra special weapon energy for walking on the spikes, so it's kind of really powerful based off of that. Also, a nice illustration there that we can use a top spin to get up there. Let me see if I can do that. And by doing so, we enter a new pathway. Okay, a little bit of a odd camera glitch over there, but I suppose it makes sense because there's an upper pathway over there. I will replay the stage at least once to see what the other pathway is. And I'm at the end. Like I said, I repeat the earlier question of whether these enemies actually have different weaknesses to certain special weapons, and if so, I would like to customize it in a future update or something. But I suppose that would make it a bit confusing for players playing through a lot of stages. In addition to having to worry about the Roadmaster's different weaknesses, players would have to worry about, well, enemy weaknesses, and those may be different. And considering how many enemy types we have to face compared to the one boss at the end of the stage, that can prove to be a problem. His weakness is still the sort of snake, so I suppose it's still following the default. Alright, this place has been completed, so I suppose this example level showcases introducing how Roadmaster weapons can be used in more creative fashions, like the top spin allowing you to bounce, the Skull Barrier preventing you from instantly dying to spikes, and alternate pathways. So let's go to Forgotten Fortress once again to demonstrate the other pathway. And of course, because this game fixed the special weapons, now the top spin actually works. It allows you to bounce off of enemies if you hit them from the top, but it also makes you completely invulnerable to most forms of damage, especially enemies if you use it on them. So let's take the upper pathway now. You saw me use the top spin against those batons, and I had no worry at all. So now the top spin is actually useful. Actually, before I go to the right route, let me see if there's another pathway to the left. There may be some tricks over there after all with the discrete screen transitions. another room where we can potentially use the skull barrier or just do it the regular way. Because I really don't want to die, I'll be using the skull barrier. We also have all those extra special weapons if we really need them, or really want to use them. Because we can also use a flash stopper to freeze all the enemies, or we can use the gravity hold to immediately delete all enemies on screen. But we'll need to use it several times before it works though. I would like to see in a future version all of the special weapons be added, even if some of them are kind of redundant. They do help, especially with certain stage types. And of course, like I said in the previous part, I would like it if we had the ability to set it so that multiple special weapons can actually have unlimited ammo. Or maybe even set it so that special weapons take half ammo, double the ammo to use, and potentially make it so that no weapon has infinite uses, or etc. So it increases flexibility. I know that's true in the Megamol 2 engine. And yes, I'll continue to make comparisons with this and the Megamol 2 engine, that's for sure. After all, that is the closest to comparison I can make to this game. Both of them allow you to make Mega Man levels. Oops, I think I know what I did wrong there. Let's see if I can salvage this. No, I can't. Oh, whoa, I almost walked up the side of the screen there. There we go. Allowing this, now we can... Oops. Okay, that was a glitch. I didn't expect to get lodged right into the wall there. This is no fault of the level designer, though. Let's try this again. At least we have this option to commit suicide and restart from the last checkpoint. So that was just a demonstration of where the paths loop up, and we just did that for some extra benefit. Now this stage has quite a few alternate pathways, so it's quite demonstrating well how the stages can have multiple pathways that loop up to each other. Because adding multiple pathways, I think they started doing that for Mega Man 6 especially, and some parts of Mega Man 5, 4, etc. But having alternate pathways, they increase the replayability of the stage and allow you to showcase more gimmicks than you usually would, without having to make the stages longer. So it really increases replayability, and that's what I took advantage of in the Megamol 2 level, Conveyor Mayhem. Although this stage is a little bit more creative in terms of the pathways it takes. And now we loop back up to the boss room at least. Unfortunately, it seems that the top spin didn't work against that enemy projectile though. Actually, let me check. Oh yeah, top spin does not work against the enemy projectiles, but it does pierce barriers though. It pierces enemy guards. As was demonstrated with the beak and the Hammer Joe. So this isn't as good as the Megamol 2 version, where the top spin, even though you couldn't bounce off enemies or Goomba stop enemies with it, you would always phase through everything when it was used. Yeah, he's completely immune to this. I can also just use the... what was this called? Rolling Cutter. But of course I'm just going to use this weakness, which is not the skull barrier, that's the other way around. It's the Search Snake. Like I said, I really would like if the full selection of Mega Man weaponry would be added. I know 2 new special weapons were added to this game, but like I said, I would like the full selection from Mega Man 1 to 10 to be added. Or at least most weapons. And that marks the end of the Forgotten Fortress. Because this part is going over 40 minutes long, I think I'll cut it in 2. And in the next part, I'll be taking care of the last 5 example levels, and then after that, I'll go and test out some of the online levels. But otherwise, the first 5 levels, Aquatic Ruins, Chamber of Trials, Computer Lab, Crash Bomb Palace, and Forgotten Fortress, all are nice example levels that demonstrate different parts of the engine and different parts of the level editor, as well as how to design a level and what creative features you can have. Aquatic Ruins was a nice vanilla level which didn't really take advantage of much, but nicely introduced gimmicks. Chamber of Trials showed how to properly introduce gimmicks in safe fashion and slowly elevate the challenge. Computer Lab, it demonstrated how room types can be a little bit different, and stages can be pretty fun without being too challenging. Plus it also demonstrated that the boss rooms don't have to be limited to 256 by 224, or it doesn't have to be a completely enclosed boss arena, it can be longer, and bosses will not despawn. Crash Bomb Palace demonstrates how you can use omnidirectional scrolling, and how stages don't need to have discrete scrolling in order to be successful. You can have completely seamless scrolling, almost like Mega Man X style scrolling, although with more limitations because you can't explicitly put camera barriers. But still, it shows you how a lot of the obstacles or gimmicks will still work without discrete scrolling. You saw it like with the boss corridors. And Forgotten Fortress, well, it demonstrated the importance of having multiple pathways and how they can link up to each other, also demonstrating how special weapons can be used in new fashions, and showed how they add more to replayability. I'm curious what important features the last 5 example levels will showcase, or at least level design tactics. Well then, thanks for watching, and have a nice day. Toodles!